welcome to the Project Felix Podcast. Hey everybody, this is Mario Kovac from Project Felix. I'm one of the co-founders of the group. Project Felix, what it is it's a grassroots effort to share stories and perspectives, and basically in the hopes of cultivating dialogue within the military community and beyond. Like I said, my name's Mario. I'm an Air Force EOD veteran, explosive ordnance disposal. I did a little over 20 years. I got out in 2018, decided to start this project. We've been doing it for a couple of years, along with Brad and Jerbo. Brad?
Hey, Brad here. I'm also one of those EOD types, still doing it. I've got a couple more years to go yet. We'll see what happens next. Looking forward to the next adventure. I like slow runs on the pavement instead of long walks on the beach. I prefer mountains and crappy dad jokes. And, I always believe you should give 100% unless you're giving blood. So in case you don't believe me, though, I'm actually world famous for my dad jokes. Just look up Conan O'Brien and EOD. But I will also tell you, to Mario's disdain, I won my case in court. Unless Jerbo wants to try to bring up old charges, I'm pretty sure it's past the statute of limitations, though. Jerbo?
Thanks for that, Brad. Hello, everybody. I'm Jerry Sheldon, aka Jerbo. I also was an EOD tech, retired 10 years ago, and then after retirement, I went into the DoD contractor industry space, and I've been doing that for the past 10 years. Some of the things that kind of satisfies my need of service and purpose is being involved with the EOD Warrior Foundation as a mission promoter, and then volunteering for the After the Long Walk peer support group as a phone watch stander. And as far as the court case, as far as I'm concerned, Brad, you're covered. I'm sure you paid that round more than once, but I might send the link out to you guys so you can go and watch this Conan O'Brien piece yourself. But that's all for intros. Mario, how about if you told us a little bit about how Project Felix came to be?
Sure. And before I forget, I might have to actually get a hold of Conan, just to see. But anyway, the idea behind Project Felix started February of 2020, pretty much right at the beginning of the pandemic. We saw there might be a need for kind of an informal peer support group for ourselves, for other EOD veterans, and anybody within the career field and the community to kind of come together with everybody being isolated. We wanted to create almost like a virtual veteran circle to come together. If somebody needs something, kind of a point of contact and a virtual belly button, if you will. So that started a little over 3 years ago. And this podcast is essentially the next evolution, the next step in this effort that we're doing. So with that being said, Jerbo, if you want to talk a little bit about this historical significance behind Felix and where that comes from.
Yeah, exactly. The our original name was the Felix Project, and Felix is sort of a nod to our our British counterparts when they formed the original bomb disposal teams during World War II. And then later on in their program, after we had modeled our bomb disposal program after theirs, the British Army was fighting the fight in Northern Ireland. So the story goes there was that a young signaler went to the commander of the 321 Squadron in the British Army bomb disposal designation, and asked the commander what radio call sign they wanted to use for their unit. And the commander thought about this. They had lost a couple of operators in that AOR sometime recently, and he decided on Phoenix to reflect the squadron rising from the ashes to fight the war on terror in Northern Ireland. This Phoenix was misheard by the signaler as Felix, and they just kind of went with it. So Felix became their unofficial mascot. As our Felix Project began to take shape and people were starting to tune in to what we were putting out, we started looking around and realized that we weren't the only Felix Project in town. There was a nonprofit organization over in the United Kingdom with that name. So we didn't want to step on anyone's toes or confuse anybody on what we were intending to do. So we changed our name to Project Felix, Project Felix. And so by doing that, we're able to keep both elements of the original, origin of our name. But then the semicolon also adds and raises awareness of suicide because grammatically, the semicolon would be a continuation, not an end or a stop. And we felt like this was a big part of what Project Felix was all about. So that's it on the little bit more of the history of Project Felix as we know it now. Brad, how about talk about some of the content and projects that we are involved in?
Sure. So we've been doing all kinds of fun stuff. Some of us have been doing some solo things. Most of us have been getting together on a regular basis, and we record some of these conversations to share. Just because, like afterwards, we found ourselves saying, "Man, I wish I had written some notes or taken that one lesson, little nugget of wisdom there out of that somehow." So we decided to start recording it so we could do just that. And we only did that, of course, with everybody's prior knowledge. We would never record anything without everybody being well aware of that. And then we also kind of opened up open conversations where there's no recording and nothing is taken away from it except for any maybe lessons you may have learned, or maybe a good book somebody recommends from a conversation, as well as just a really good sense of community. And something that I really like that I've been seeing more and more of lately is we've been getting people from outside the EOD community involved, which is a huge win-win because then, we get that diversity of perspective, and it's not just an echo chamber of EOD techs talking about EOD stuff, and it's human beings connecting on a human level. Maybe EOD techs have a little bit of a different take and can provide a perspective that's not quite as common, which, could be something we bring to the table, but it's important not to get stuck in just listening to EOD stories, because that's not what this is all about. What this is all about is kind of taking life lessons learned and figuring out like, hey, is there somebody else out there who's experienced something similar, or somebody who learned something from this while I'm going through it, and maybe I can hear them talk and inherit some wisdom from them, which, every time we get together, I know I get something out of it every single time. Sometimes it's from somebody who joined for the first time. Other times it's been somebody who's been there at almost every single one. So like that's kind of an in-depth little nutshell, if you will, if that even makes sense. That's kind of an oxymoron, but of some of the things we've been doing. And we've also had some in-person stuff going down, met up at Mario's place for some in-person things that were pretty cool. Previous duty station, I kind of transitioned what we were doing on Skype to in-person with a couple other like-minded individuals, which was incredible. We met up once a week, and again, even in person, it's even better. We've also been on a couple other podcasts. A few of us have done a couple others. Mario was on Chocolate Croissants with Matt Halpern from the band Periphery, and then Mario and I were also on Behind the Warrior with the EOD Warrior Foundation. So there's all kinds of stuff going on, and we're always looking forward to finding new ways to branch out and continue peer-to-peer support, which is really, I think, at the heart of what we're looking at. And talking about those events, I think it's important to let Jerbo go before I steal his thunder on some of that schedule and format.
Yeah, not much really to add to that, Brad. I mean, our goal right now, what we wanted to do today with this podcast was to just bring you kind of our game plan of what we're going to try to do with this podcast. So this is our kind of introductory one. So we want to produce a monthly podcast that will have some substance to it. The three of us talking about one of the topics of interest that we've talked about before, maybe some new ones, just kind of deep retrospective reflections, and pick a topic and kind of dig into it. We'd like to have people come in, maybe professionals in that field or just people that are practitioners of this, expertise, whatever, to bring in their perspectives. And so again, like Brad said, it's not just like an echo chamber where we're all just kind of repeating the stuff that we like to say to each other. So we're really looking forward to that and putting together a list of hopefuls that can come on and add some perspective and knowledge and wisdom to our conversations. And then, the big thing is we're really excited to be putting this out in a podcast format, because right now, like, you can go to our YouTube channel and see some great stuff there. And on social media, you can find us there and look at some of our previous offerings. But, there's limitations with that. With podcasts, it seems like something you can just kind of put on your earbuds at the gym or when you're driving, have it going on, Spotify or some other app like that, and just get like, good 15 minutes of, an interesting talk. And that's kind of our goal going forward. Some of the specific projects that we've got out there on our YouTube channel that are really interesting are, and I don't remember if you mentioned this, Brad, but perspective of you on your e-bike, going through the mountains of northern Italy, just having a conversation with yourself about, reaction versus responses. Some of those are just really compelling, just seeing the, just visually beautiful scenery and having this, conversation. It really draws you in to the subject matter. And those have been really popular. A lot of people have commented privately and publicly how just having that discussion really helped them out, and something they could really relate to. So that's our vibe. That's what we're kind of looking towards. Topics like windshield versus rear view mirror was another really popular one. Our first one was the lobster shell, or how the lobster grows and discards its shell and grows into another one and keeps going and stuff like that. So yeah, that's, if you haven't listened to some of our stuff before, that's kind of along the lines of what we like to continue with.
Yeah, so as mentioned, we talk about a lot of different things, and sometimes some of this stuff, maybe comes off the top of our head, but to be honest, a lot of us are book nerds and we read about a lot of these things and some awesome books that are out there. I'd say if I had a top three, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I think a few of these are probably in a bunch of our top threes. But my top three books, just to recommend right off the bat, would be Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Struggle Well by Ken Falk and Josh Goldberg, and also Atomic Habits. I think that one's by James Clear. There's a whole bunch more books out there. My Kindle library is a mess with stuff, but reading has been huge for a whole bunch of us in the past couple of years. And the great thing is, even if you never read any of these books, and that doesn't matter. Maybe you'll want to read the book after we come to a conversation, or maybe that thought will cue something in you that makes you think of a different topic. And that's something we're always looking for, is suggestions on, what should we cover next? What do you think we should talk about next? Don't get me wrong, a couple of opinions and ideas, but the more the better, and the more varied we can make it, we're all about that as well. So we'll get some details out there on how to do a sort of mail call, if you will, at some point. But for now, keep an ear out to see what's coming up next. We've got a few already up in the pipe, and I'm sure once we get this thing rolling, we'll have a way for everyone to submit, hey, here's something I would love to hear a conversation on next. And talking about next, I'm going to pass the mic to Mario.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, so basically that's what we're doing with the podcast. We do have a lot of plans moving forward, and we're looking forward to getting this out finally into a podcast format. Like we've talked about, we spent the last 3 years kind of honing this craft, getting an idea of the topics that we want to talk about, the people that we feel could add something to the content of this. And like I mentioned previously, this is kind of just the next step of the effort that we call Project Felix. So we're really looking forward to putting this stuff out there. And we're really wanting to hear from you, our listeners, on things that you would like to hear, things that we would like to discuss and maybe get our take on, or we'd like to get your take on it too. So all our contact information will be below as well. So again, Thank you very much for joining us, and have a good night.